One George Clooney's appearance on Loose Women was meant to be a light-hearted plug for his new humanitarian documentary, but within minutes the studio atmosphere turned electric. The panel, led by Denise Welch, had barely finished their gushing introduction when Denise leaned forward and asked the question everyone in the control room immediately regretted green-lighting. "George, you're always banging on about human rights and refugees, yet you fly private everywhere and live in a bloody great mansion on Lake Como. Don't you think that makes you a bit of a hypocrite?" The audience gasped audibly. Janet Street Porter's eyebrows shot up so high they nearly left her forehead, and Nadia Sawalha froze with a custard cream halfway to her mouth. Clooney, who had been smiling politely seconds earlier, put his coffee down slowly, the trademark charm evaporating from his face. He let the silence hang for a full 5 seconds before responding in a calm but icy tone. "Denise, I've spent 25 years trying to get cameras into places most people pretend don't exist. I've been shot at in Darfur, I've sat with mothers who watched their children starve, and I've used whatever platform I have, including the money I earn, to try and stop it happening again. But sure, let's reduce all of that to how many bathrooms I have in Italy." The audience started murmuring, some clapped, others looked uncomfortable. Denise, never one to back down, smirked and said, "Oh come on, George, don't play the saint card. We all know celebrities love to virtue signal while living like kings. You could have heard a pin drop on the pastel pink sofa." Clooney's jaw tightened visibly. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, and fixed Denise with a stare that has ended lesser interviews. "Virtue signal? I've raised over $2 billion for causes most people can't even pronounce. I don't stand on red carpets asking for applause for that. I just do it. But you sit here on daytime television calling me a hypocrite because I own a plane? Tell me, Denise, how do you get to this studio every day? Teleport?" The audience let out a collective ooh. Denise laughed, but it was the sharp, defensive laugh of someone who knows they've poked a bear. "Don't turn this on me, George. We're just asking the questions the public want answered." Clooney shook his head. "No, you're not. You're doing gotcha journalism for clicks. You want me to sit here and apologize for being successful while trying to do some good in the world? Not happening." Kelly Brook tried to diffuse the tension with a nervous giggle and a quick "let's take a break and talk about your new film," but Denise waved her off and doubled down. "Success doesn't give you immunity from criticism, George. Some might say flying private while lecturing the rest of us about carbon footprints is the very definition of tone deaf." At that point Clooney let out a short, incredulous laugh and looked straight down the camera lens. "You know what? I came here thinking I'd talk about displaced families in Sudan. Instead I'm defending my existence to someone who once flashed her knickers on reality TV for attention. I'm done." He unclipped his mic and stood up. The studio erupted. Half the audience started cheering. The other half booed. Someone in the front row actually shouted, "Sit down, George." The floor manager was frantically waving from the wings while the producers screamed into earpieces. Janet Street Porter tried to grab Clooney's arm with a hissed, "George, love, come on now," but he gently removed her hand and kept walking toward the exit. Denise, now on her feet too, shouted after him, "Running away because you can't handle a real conversation? Typical Hollywood ego." Clooney stopped dead, turned around slowly, and delivered the line that would be replayed a billion times online. "Denise, I've sat across from warlords who've committed genocide. Trust me, I can handle you. I just choose not to waste another second of my life doing it." The audience lost their minds. Nadia was openly mouthing "oh my god" over and over. Colleen Nolan had both hands over her face, and poor Kelly looked like she was about to cry. Security appeared at the side of the stage, unsure whose side they were meant to be on. Clooney gave a small, polite wave to the audience, said "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a broken bar memorable," and walked straight off set, leaving his half-finished coffee and a stunned silence in his wake. For backstage was pandemonium. Clooney's publicist was already on the phone screaming at ITV executives while Denise stormed into the green room yelling, "Did you see that? He can't take a bit of northern bluntness." The other panelists followed her in, still reeling. Janet muttered, "Well, you did basically call him a hypocrite to his face 5 minutes into the interview." Denise threw her hands up. "Someone has to hold these people accountable." Meanwhile in the corridor, Clooney was calmly putting his jacket on while his security team formed a protective bubble. A young runner nervously approached him with an apology and a bottle of water. George took the water, smiled, and said, "Don't worry, kid, I've had worse mornings." As he walked toward the exit, a producer literally sprinted after him begging him to come back and finish the segment. Clooney stopped, looked the man up and down, and said, "Tell you what, when Denise apologizes on air for that ambush, I'll think about it." The producer opened his mouth, realized that wasn't happening, and watched helplessly as George Clooney climbed into a waiting black Mercedes and was driven away, never to return. 5 By the time the show cut to an emergency ad break, the clip was already exploding across social media. #George Clooney walks off was trending worldwide within 6 minutes. Team Denise flooded Twitter claiming she'd spoken truth to power, while Clooney fans called it the most unprofessional interview in British TV history. Piers Morgan, naturally, weighed in within 9 minutes, calling Denise a legend and Loose Women the only show with balls left on ITV. Meanwhile Hollywood reporters were getting statements from Clooney's camp confirming he had left the building and would not be returning. The ITV press office went into full meltdown, issuing a bland statement about lively debate being the heart of Loose Women while privately tearing their hair out. Back in the studio, the show returned from the break with a clearly rattled panel trying to style it out. Denise opened with, "Well, that was certainly passionate television," as the others nodded vigorously like nothing catastrophic had just happened. The audience gave them polite applause, but the energy was gone. Everyone knew they just witnessed daytime TV's most spectacular car crash. 24 hours later the fallout was nuclear. Clooney gave one short, dignified interview to CNN where he said, "I have nothing but respect for British audiences, but I didn't fly 8 hours to be insulted by someone who mistakes rudeness for journalism." Denise, never one to let a headline die, went on This Morning the next day claiming George had stormed off like a diva and that she stood by every word. Viewing figures for the Loose Women episode broke records. It became the most watched daytime segment of the decade. ITV quietly renewed Denise's contract for another 3 years, while simultaneously banning any A-list Hollywood actors from appearing on the show until further notice. George, for his part, never mentioned Loose Women again, but friends say he still occasionally forwards the clip to a model with the caption, "Remember the time I got kicked off a British sofa by Coronation Street's loudest alcoholic?" The whole saga cemented Denise Welch as the unlikely nemesis of Hollywood royalty and turned a simple promotional appearance into one of the most talked about moments in talk show history, proving once and for all that on live television, sometimes the loosest woman wins.